Okay, today we're going to talk about the election impacts on share and property markets here at home. And after that, we're going to briefly flick through the 5-week federal budget that was handed down last night. So let's have a look at the things that we need to know. The election is due to be called by the 17th of May, about 5, maybe 6 weeks away. They're expecting a close result, risk of a hung parliament, and likelihood of a minority government. You can see that things have sort of narrowed in terms of the polling results. Looks like coalition is marginally ahead, but there's going to be some real subtlety there. Okay, one of the big questions that I hear all the time, Jono, what difference does it make on based on election results? What are the shares and property going to do as a result? Now, this is just purely factual data. Shares going back to World War II. Under coalition governments, they've done nearly 13% a year, and under Labor, nearly 9.7% per year on average. Property significantly better at 7.7 under the coalition than 4.3 under Labor. Now, from the share market point of view, a shorter term piece is going to be looking at what has the average been in the quarter following an election. Now, regardless of government, the average is 4.2% uptick in the quarter following an election. Now, that may well be sort of overshadowed by what's going on in the US and some, let's go with questionable, whimsical policy decisions being made over there. But that is the background, that is the history from an election point of view. Now, the challenges, regardless of who gets elected, there's going to be some pretty big challenges for the government. First and foremost is going to be standard of living, cost of living, and you can see from here that the standard of living has been rising. It's been great, and then since COVID, we've taken a really big dip, about a 10% dip, and that's got to be something that any new government, current government, has to start to address. Now, a big part of this is going to be what's happening in the property market. We have seen on the back of COVID, obviously, inflation rising, 30 and rate rises is going to take a bite out of anybody's living standard. But when we have a look at housing affordability, this stuff is really starting to show up now. So in terms of, can you buy a house? How affordable is housing? It is at a low point, certainly since the mid-90s. What's that, 30 years? It's not looking great. Mortgage repayments as a share of household income, it is sneaking up towards that 35% mark. It'd be much better to see it around 25%, but we can see there's certainly have been periods, sort of the late 80s, early 90s. People always talk about sort of interest rates being through the roof, but we're starting to creep up there now. So that is going to be really, really important. And I'll come back to this percentage of the share of income going towards mortgage repayments in a couple of slides. But this is a really important one, because if we're talking about who can afford a house, if you're looking at first home buyers, nationwide, it's about 5.5 years to save up the deposit to buy your first home. Look at New South Wales, clear leader, taking 6.5 years. It is a massive amount of time if you are saving to buy your first home. Now, if we come back to that piece around the mortgages and taking, nearly 35% of the family budget, let's have a look at what happens if you spend maybe 25%. What can the median household afford to buy 14% of the houses? Put differently, the median household spending 25% of the family budget cannot afford 86% of the properties on the market at the moment. That's a pretty stark reality for a lot of people, and something the government is going to need to have a look at. Now, let's have a look at the 5-week federal budget. A little bit of a fizzer. More notable for me was the things that did not get a mention. Number one, Division 296. Unlikely to get legislated before an election, so that is going to drop off and disappear, hopefully mothballed for good, because that is the proposal to tax unrealised capital gains inside big super funds. Now, that for me causes some drama. It opens some doors that I don't want opened. No mention of modern tax residence rules or payday super. Marginal changes, there's a bit of a tax cut next year and the year after, and energy relief in 75 odd bucks a quarter. Some changes to HEX debt or HELP debt, 20% cut 1 June, and then the repayment threshold moves from 54 to 67, which is pretty good. So very little in the way of the budget as expected. Bit of a non-starter, but it is going to be really, really interesting to see who wins and then what they do about all things affordability.